This is the story of Team Strike, a card counting team from Europe formed with the goal of beating casinos at high stakes blackjack. It was game time. We booked an Airbnb and spent 2 days training together before the team hit. We had a bankroll of £73,000 and the BP would be betting up to roughly 2 hands of about 3k. If variance was on our side, this could be a profitable trip. But with card counting, in the short term, nothing is ever guaranteed. Guys, the owner, old guy with white hair, is watching the BJ tapes back. He's onto us. Not long after that, I spotted something pretty major. I saw on one of the pit boss computers a picture of someone's driver's license.
So I just got out of the casino and now I'm at the meeting point and the others are going to slowly filter out. Definitely looks like they're onto us. Whether or not that's the end of it is up for debate. I reckon that's us done.
So this is my first encounter with what they would call a professional card counting team. Over the years, we had plenty of card counters, but these guys were the first that I know of. Were a definite team, well organized, well trained, and as we later found out, good documentary producers. This chap, Stephen Bridges, got a successful YouTube series and dozens of videos of him and his team hitting dozens of casinos all around the world. So in this video, they claim that they've hit Europe's toughest casino. Slight exaggeration. One of the oldest independent casinos in the UK, although they tried to claim that it's mainland Europe, but as you'll see, that's not accurate. Great video, but they definitely embellish quite a few details throughout this, as we'll see.
This is the story of Team Strike, a card counting team from Europe formed with the goal of beating casinos at high stakes blackjack. In this 3-part video series, you'll come along with us for the ride and see what happens when a group of counters come together with a lot of cash and a skill that, if all goes well, could be used to win hundreds of thousands of dollars from casinos before they catch us. There are 2 main types of team play in the blackjack world. The first is solo team play. This is where counters will play at separate casinos, but they'll share a bankroll. This is what we did in Project Lewis, a series that is available in full on my YouTube channel. The problem with solo counting is that casinos have got really good at catching card counters. No matter what the counter is doing to try and blend in and act natural, all card counting relies on one major tell: betting big when the count is high and betting small when the count is low. You might be able to be sneaky, you might be able to be subtle. Given enough time, the casino will catch you. If you've seen my videos before, you'll be used to seeing me get caught and what can happen when you are.
This is private property. Sure. This is a privately owned property.
Yep.
So I will say at this point that they don't actually show any of the video footage from inside our casino. They've used American casino footage by the looks of it for B-roll, basically. I think they actually flash up a disclaimer at some point to tell you that. But none of the hidden camera footage that you see in this video is filmed on this occasion.
Do not have to pass you up.
And then there's the other type, big player / spotter team play, where the team works together in the same casino and the team members are secretly passing information between each other. Card counters, known as spotters, will play at different tables in the casino, usually betting the minimum while keeping the count. When the count gets high, they'll do some form of secret signal to let the BP know it's their time to shine. The big player sees this signal and joins the table. They place a big bet and play out the hand. The spotter will secretly communicate with the BP, either telling them the count via a code word or coding instructions of how the BP should play out the hand. When the count goes negative, the BP is given the signal to leave, and then they just wander around the gaming floor until they get another signal from a spotter to go and play. The advantage to this is that everyone's consistent. The spotters are always betting small money, the big player is always betting big money, which means that the biggest tell has been totally eliminated, making it so much harder for surveillance to catch on. When I got into counting, I was introduced to a man that goes by the name Ultimate. Ultimate introduced me to more counters, and we ended up forming a small team that we called Team Strike. Team Strike first tried BP/spotter play back in March 2020. We employed the classic technique of signaling in the BP and then passing the count through a code word. And although we didn't get caught, we did lose a staggering $24,800 in one shoe. That's about a 20-minute span of play, and it was me who signaled in the BP, so I felt extra bad. I remember my team manager saying that it was his worst career shoe, and that much worse wasn't possible. This is probably a good time to mention for the new viewers that although card counting does work, you only win just over half the time. We then flew to another state where our plan to play as a team was quickly shut down due to the start of COVID-19. It becomes impossible to do team play when the casinos are limiting the amount of players at each table to 3, and there were literal queues to join the table. Fast forward a year, and I got to know a card counter by the name of Irish AP. Irish was new to counting and didn't know many counters, so Colin Jones from blackjackapprenticeship.com/Stephen gave him my number for us to connect. One day, me and Irish were having a chat and he mentioned a casino he'd played at in Europe. He was describing the casino, the layout, the amount of tables, and it hit me. This would be the perfect place for a team hit.
Hello, friend.
So, what they don't tell you in this video, the big player, Irish AP, he'd actually visited the casino 2 or 3 weeks earlier to this visit when they hit us. And on that occasion, he'd come alone, played blackjack, lost around £5,000. I wasn't working that night. I'd never seen him until the day of the team visit. But the boss was familiar with him. So when this guy came back, the boss was fussing over him. Best friends, of course. And to be honest, I was happy for the boss to handle him. You know, this guy's playing blackjack. The boss seems to be familiar with him. He was not on my radar, really. He was playing big, but I wasn't very interested. I had a very busy roulette pit to run. If the boss wanted to take this chap under his wing, crack on. It's not my responsibility at that point. But as you'll see, things took a turn for the worse.
And I hope you're well. Interesting opportunity, I reckon, for a cheeky team play with some excellent conditions. So here's the shtick. 6-deck game, 3 tables, minimum 5, maximum over 5k. I reckon 4-person team, 3 spotters, 1 BP could be unreal.
I spoke to Ultimate, the team manager, who crunched the numbers and confirmed yes, it would be possible. The game, in theory, could be worth around £2,200 per hour. So myself, Anonymous Counter, Ultimate, and Irish AP made a plan to hit this casino, a project that we would call Project Tower. We needed to bring our A game because this casino had a reputation of being very good at catching card counters. It was rumoured that the owner was a former professional gambler and as a result was pretty confident that advantage players wouldn't stand a chance. After a team call, we realised we had to develop a totally new system for communicating. In the country that we were playing, it was legal for...
The country being the United Kingdom. As I said earlier, they... definitely tried to play up on the aspect of this being some kind of crazy, dangerous casino in Europe, which couldn't be further from the truth.
Casinos to listen in to the tables. Each table had a little microphone that was fed directly to surveillance, even though...
Also, no audio recordings at the table.
Our verbal communication system was pretty complex. We couldn't be sure that if a surveillance person was paying attention, that they wouldn't spot a pattern. We needed something totally different. So I spent a lot of time developing a totally non-verbal way of communicating. It utilized changes in posture, ways of moving, head positioning, fidgeting, and more. It even had multiple ways of communicating the same bit of information so that we could rotate between those ways, hopefully making it totally impossible to spot a pattern. It was a tough balance. Hopefully, having a system this complex would make us invisible. But complex systems are more prone to errors. The last thing we'd want is someone scratching their eyebrow by accident and that triggering the BP to come over and bet loads of money on a negative count. After all this chat of secret communication, this would probably be a good time to cover, is this even legal? Well, it's a complicated topic, and I'm sure the laws are going to change a bit depending on the country, but in general, as blackjack is a game where you're allowed to openly communicate information to the other players at the table and discuss your cards and what you're thinking, doing that secretly isn't against the law. Card counting is also perfectly legal, although there has been a couple of occasions in Europe where a casino has withheld winnings from a player. Sometimes...
we've never withheld winnings from anybody.
Whether something is legal or not doesn't really make a difference. It was game time. We booked an Airbnb and spent 2 days training together.
So they say September 2021, but this actually took place right at the end of August 2021. I know that because it was 2 days before my birthday. And yeah, as I'll tell you later, caused me some pain in the arse for my birthday celebrations.
Before the team hit, we had a bankroll of £73,000, and the BP would be betting up to roughly 2 hands of about 3k. If variance was on our side, this could be a profitable trick. But with card counting in the short term, nothing is ever guaranteed. Currently, we've been doing a pretty intense training session. As we're doing team play, there's a lot of secret communication between us in the casino. So it was my job then in this training session to play and then do the communication. And oh my goodness, it is so much more difficult to be counting cards and then processing the other information, doing the signals and the...
So, as I understand it, these guys were actually in town for 4 or 5 days prior to the night they hit us. What they had done, they came to the casino one per day in the 3 or 4 days leading up to the Friday night when this took place. All signing up individually. I'm not sure whether they actually played on the day that they joined. If they did, they played very minimally. They probably came in and scouted out the place, each of them, I'd imagine, so they were familiar with it. But they didn't. They were certainly not on our radar in the days leading up to this. And the big player, there was no sign of him, although he did phone in advance, which I'll come to a bit later.
Silent communication or the verbal communication of the code words, like counting cards, is difficult enough as it is. I think we need a few more hours training to really ensure that we nail this. The day came and it was time to hit the casino. It was a Friday night and we started by sending in the first spotter. He headed to a table and started...
So again, they've used footage from elsewhere, I believe. Oh, this possibly might be our car park, but there's no internal footage.
Setting the minimum. He'd be waiting a while because we had to give it quite a bit of time between sending in each spotter and the BP. If we all went in together, that would be a dead giveaway. I was up next, and after handing over my ID at the door to get a membership card, which was mandatory to even be in this casino, in I walked, doing my best to ignore my teammate. I didn't even want to look at him. I sat down at a table and started playing, and my heart was racing. We'd done a lot of planning for this, and it was all happening. I started counting immediately, even though I knew it was going to be a long time before the BP was around. But I had to make sure I wasn't looking around for the BP. Sure, a subtle head turn wouldn't really do anything, but if all 3 of us were doing that, it would definitely stand out to surveillance. We had to make sure that we weren't doing anything that would give us away, and the pressure was on. When Irish entered the casino, he immediately ran into a problem.
Prior to arriving at the casino, I had agreed verbally over the phone that I could buy up to about 40,000, 50,000, and then when I arrived at the casino to try and buy in, he said I would be limited to 10,000, potentially with the allowance to buy in for more if required, but it wasn't guaranteed. He said he would see how things went, and of course that changed the situation for us because we had no idea, so we lose the initial 10,000 very quickly.
There was a chance...
So what happened, as they say here, the big player had got in touch with us, asked us what kind of documentation he would need to show to be able to play at a high level. So the way things work in the United Kingdom, we're limited by the regulator, the Gambling Commission, on how much we can actually take off somebody or allow somebody to play for before we do our due diligence on them. In looking into source of funds, can they afford to play at this sort of level, and that kind of thing. So obviously these guys, their game is reliant on having a big bankroll. So they'd contacted us, sent through a load of documentation showing income, salary, savings, etc. And the money laundering officer at the time, he'd agreed that with what they had shown him, he was happy for them to spend up to £40,000 over the weekend. So they had said that they were in town for the weekend. How much could they gamble, etc. So it had been agreed with them that what they had shown would justify a spend of around £40,000 potentially. But when they turned up, they wanted to buy in immediately for £40,000. So my colleague at the time, he'd refused them that. The intention was never to allow somebody to buy in for £40,000 in one hit, lose it 10 minutes later, and then obviously then they're looking then to buy in again then, because people want to try and win their money back. That would not be a good situation for anybody. We don't want people to think that we've taken their money and then cut them off. So my colleague had agreed he could take £10,000 out on his first withdrawal, play sensibly, see how he gets on. And then obviously the limit that had been agreed with them would be made available to him, but not in one purchase, not to just start the night and lose it immediately. That would be irresponsible and just leads to a messy situation.
That we could lose 10k in just 4 rounds. And if the casino didn't let Irish rebuy at that moment, then that would be it. All the planning, all the training, basically for nothing. With 10k, Irish got a call in pretty early and went over to bet. I didn't even see him, I was just acting as a good little spotter, playing the minimum. Eventually, I caught a high count and gave a signal, which I think actually now it is okay if I mention this signal because we don't use it anymore, but the signal was basically just to start doing the full Macarena, standing up and everything. But it really gets their attention. Irish came over and played.
I really don't know how my dealers or inspectors didn't comment on somebody doing the Macarena several times immediately before a big player came. Whether that's true, I'm not 100% sure. I never saw them do the Macarena through the night.
It's 2 bets of £1,000-ish each. Despite the count being high, he was down to 15 and 12, and the dealer's up card was a 5. No one had great hands, but that meant the dealer was likely to bust. He drew a 10, giving him 15. Not bad. It's very likely that he was going to bust. But then he drew a 3, losing us 2k in that round. Irish then slammed the table and yelled. In fact, for a lot of the night, I heard Irish yelling, which didn't fill me with confidence that we were winning. Time went.
This is true. He was very, very loud. Basically just wandered around all night with his rack of chips. You certainly had no doubt about where he was, at which table he was playing at. Seen in their other videos since this happened, I would say they're a bit over the top of it all. But as I say, the boss seemed happy enough with the guy when he met him before. I'd never met him, so to me he was just a bit over the top, flamboyant, out of towner. But as I say, the boss was watching him. He was under his wing, not mine.
On, and it became apparent that even if we were losing, the actual system that we had was working really well. Although one time I had a pretty high count and Irish was chatting with the manager. He didn't see my call-in signal for a few minutes, which is a really long time in the scheme of blackjack, but I was the only person playing at my table, so I managed to take a break. Still sitting at the table, but just not playing for a while. This would normally look very weird, but I'd established myself as having a very casual manner, frequently taking breaks throughout the night. Irish did eventually catch my signal, and it's a good thing too, because he won a few hands at my table.
I had no idea how difficult it is to keep an eye on all the spotters and also just try and mix into the environment and look like I wasn't looking for calling signals. It's just so exhausting as well, like doing that for 4 or 5 hours, just wandering around looking for call-ins. It's just feels so unnatural.
Counting, signaling, betting, counting, signaling, betting. Hours went by. The whole time, me not knowing if we were winning. It was getting near to closing time, and we started.
So they definitely knew they were up. I mean, as I recall, they were up pretty quickly. Bought in for £10,000. He was holding around 25,000 fairly quickly. Did a load of it back, but I don't think they actually ever went into a negative through the night. It would have been fairly obvious to them that they were winning because the chap was walking around with a rack of chips which can hold up to £50,000. It would have been obvious to them that there was a healthy supply of chips in his hod.
To get heat. Our BP was experiencing that classic shift in friendliness. At one point, the managers were bending over backwards to keep Irish happy. Can we get you a drink, sir? Is there anything you need, sir? But there was a definite shift. No one was being rude to Irish.
Yeah, I'm not convinced about this either because in our casino, you're very lucky to get more than one drink, an alcoholic drink given to you. Like the boss has never ever approved of just giving people drink after drink after drink to get them drunk. And I actually raised this point with them at some point following day, which we'll come to later. I wouldn't say that we were being off with him at all. If anything, He might have just had a couple of people rolling their eyes at him because of the amount of noise he was making.
But they were being less warm. Not long after that, I spotted something pretty major. I saw on one of the pit boss computers a picture of someone's driver's license. I couldn't see whose it was, but I could see that it was a UK driver's license. Now, we weren't in England, so there were very, very few people.
So again, like the fact that there was a UK driving license up on the screen in the UK, it's not that surprising, but quite possibly was one of theirs, because at some point we were looking at them, but not until we'd already raised the alarm, I would say.
From the UK in this casino, and I was one of them. I was pretty sure it was mine. A few minutes later, Irish messaged the group chat. Guys, the owner, old guy with white hair, is watching the BJ tapes back. He's onto us. This triggered some alarm in the chat. Cash out, then buy in. Why? Mitigate risk? Do you know or guess? Anon's fear is we won't get the money if they should find out. Let's stay cool. Pretty sure they know. No cash out, stay cool. They won't have the balls to refuse. The team was split.
So it's possible that he saw the boss watching them on the cameras, because he always takes an interest in the games. If there's a big game going on, he'll quite happily sit there and watch a game of blackjack on the video without standing at the table, so that he's not making the customers feel too uncomfortable, although he's not adverse to chatting to them at the table as well. So I'm a bit confused with when that conversation actually took place. It's possible that they thought we were onto them earlier, but the boss had actually left at the time when they were detected, which we'll come to.
If they were onto us, nothing we did now would change anything. We'd eventually get caught and they had our IDs, so there wasn't any benefit to stopping. Why not just keep playing and maximize the opportunity? Unless they decided to withhold the cash and refuse to pay out Irish.
Again, nobody's going to be refusing to pay the man. He's won the money. He's going to get paid.
Let me reiterate, there has been some shady stuff that has happened in European casinos, so it was a very realistic possibility.
That's definitely for dramatic effect for the benefit of his video, I think.
And Irish had a quick meeting in the toilets to discuss, and it was decided. We'd play until just before the casino closed, around 4 a.m. The pit boss said the name of Anonymous. It was time to go. We each cashed out, leaving a little bit of time between each of us. I cashed out first and went...
So, what had actually happened, every few hours we balance the tables, check the floats, see how much each table's winning or losing, get a rough idea of where the position of the casino is. So at this point, the boss had left, and I'd wandered over to the blackjack pits to get the dealers to check their floats. And one of the dealers, a great dealer, he can count cards himself, but he turned to me and told me that there was a German chap on his table who had just gone to the toilets, and that this guy had been playing perfect blackjack all night, but never changed his bet from a fiver. So at that point, I've looked at him on the iPad, and then I've turned around to have a look at the other card tables, and on each of the other tables, there was a face that I didn't recognize. Stephen was on one of them, and then another chap who I think must be Ultimate on a third table. And it was that point then where I was pretty sure they'd had our pants down. So our casino is a little bit unique in that probably 85-90% of our customers on a day-to-day basis are well known to us. On a weekend is when we might get faces that we don't recognize, because you'll get people who've come in from the city centre, less regular customers, etc. But the vast majority of our custom were regular members who've been coming there for decades and are well known to everybody. But at this point, I'm looking around the card pit, and I can see a face that I don't recognize on every table, staring at their cards very intently. And that's when I started taking names to go and investigate them on the computer system then, because I was pretty sure that they'd had our pants down then. Everything kind of clicked into place.
The nearby McDonald's, our meeting point.
So I just got out of the casino, and now I'm at the meeting point, and the others are going to slowly filter out. Definitely looks like they're onto us. Whether or not that's the end of it is up for debate. I reckon that's us done.
As I was leaving, I checked.
So at this point now, I'd already gone to the bureau, loaded up their memberships, I could see their join dates, and sequentially around the same time each day, but one after the other earlier in the week they had joined. One a day. And in my head, they were definitely a team. So I'd returned to the card pit, and I was quite loud about it, but I told everybody, cut your shoes deep. And that is the point where they started to look uncomfortable. And the main chap immediately bailed for the cash desk to cash out. But the problem he had was that there was a queue of 12 or 13 people ahead of him. So these boys were all stuck at their individual tables for quite a while, whilst he was stuck in a long queue at the cage, unable to cash out. I mean, they make out that they've kind of twigged that we've caught onto them, and they all do a runner. But I mean, the whole process of them leaving probably took 25, 30 minutes in total, where they were looking incredibly uncomfortable.
The group chat and saw the good news. Plus £36,000. We'd won.
So that is accurate. They did win 36k on that night. Possibly slightly more, a couple of quid over, but yeah, they won their 36 grand.
£36,000.
So here they are celebrating.
£36,000 cashed out, no problems. I'd later learn that in this entire first session, we were never down. We'd also won just over double our EV, which basically means we got lucky on top of the counting. The next day, we went back. We were actually placing bets about whether or not we'd all be banned. We thought it was pretty unlikely we'd get time in, but there was a chance, and as we've come to learn, never underestimate the intelligence or stupidity of casinos. We stayed at the Airbnb while we sent in our first spotter.
Damn, okay. Then let us have a discussion and we'll give you a call back. Is that okay? He's banned.
Irish, my friend? No, he's banned.
He wasn't the only one, as when I got to the front desk, I was told that my membership had been revoked. I asked why I'd been banned, and the guy looked at the screen and in total shock said, "Apparently you're part of a card counting team?" Thanks to good old GDPR law, I asked him to print out my profile and give it to me. And sure enough, part of a 5-person card counting.
So that message was written by me the night before. It was actually my afternoon shift the following day. So when these guys have turned back up towards the end of my shift, around 6 p.m., between 6 and 7 p.m., I should have finished at 8. But I ended up getting stuck with these guys, which was annoying because I was intending to go out and celebrate my birthday. So there were people at the pub waiting for me. And I eventually got there around 9 o'clock, maybe slightly later. But yeah, that was my message. Don't reinstate them. And then I had to go and speak to Steve. And the first guy took it on the chin and he left and obviously called these guys. But I was called out to speak to Stephen, who was quite agitated and insistent that he wanted to have the printout of what the message was on his profile.
Team. Wait a second. Me, Ultimate, Anonymous, Irish AP. There's only 4 of us, which means that one poor guy that just wanted to have a casual night playing blackjack got banned from the casino because they thought he was on our team. I wish I could have seen the moment that he went back to that casino and found out that he was a card counter.
So there was a 5th man identified, but he was unbanned the following day after we reviewed everything. But yeah, no, sadly, the 5th man will never be accused of having been a card counter. Although he did join up on the same pattern as him. He had, and the 5th man had actually joined on the Friday night. But it was, the times were everything, and he was playing on a 4th table. And yeah, he was innocent and not involved with them.
Later found out, and I won't go into why I know this, but the reason we were caught is because when they got suspicious, they looked at the accounts of the players and they saw that a few people were brand new members to the casino. But they had no idea how we were communicating, and they were pretty confused as to how we'd managed to win so much money. We knew the spot.
So we definitely weren't confused. When I spoke to this chap, I told him, you're definitely in a team. You've joined up one day after the other. Blah, blah, blah. And it didn't take long. It was maybe 2 minutes. And he said to me then that he's actually joined a card counting team because he's a YouTuber and intending to film a documentary about card counting. It was quite an interesting conversation, shall we say. He actually contacted me a couple of weeks later, asking if I'd agree to be interviewed, to do like a manager's side of a casino side of the story, to go with his video, I assume. But at the time, I wasn't convinced that was ever going to get the green light from the boss, who's no longer my boss, which is why I'm doing this video now. But yeah, no, he wanted me to agree to be filmed doing like an online Zoom call with him. I guess they would disguise my voice and my face if I wanted. But I didn't agree to that. But there was a few emails exchanged back and forth. He's quite a nice chap.
Spotters joining the casino on similar dates would be a risk, but we weighed it up versus sending people over to join months in advance, and we just thought it wasn't worth doing. Having won 36k, we'd actually taken out the entire casino's day's takings. Not bad at all. But 36k was going to...
So this is actually the money that they've cashed out from us. That's our sealed units, our bags. And as you can see, all of the money there is British money. So when they're saying that they were in a casino in Europe, this is the proof that they were actually just in the UK. But I guess Europe's toughest casino sounds like a better, more clickbaity, I would say, for their YouTube video.
Feel small compared to what would happen on the next trip. We'd be playing with higher stakes and a bigger team, and we'd run into problems and challenges that we just could not anticipate. Speaking of problems and challenges, one of the things I've struggled with in the past is when I've faced some unconventional blackjack scenario that I've not been sure how to deal with. Maybe there's a weird rule change.
So this is going to be him moving on now to try and sell you his blackjack course that he's in the affiliate program for, I'm guessing, so he gets a commission if anybody ever signs up. It's actually a really good series. If you're interested in casinos or card counting, anything like that, if you're interested in that kind of content, then I would definitely recommend checking out Stephen Bridges' channel. As I say, there's dozens of videos in this series in the end. Most of it's based in America. There's some outside of America, but it covers like a two-year period, I think. Basically, I think they start just before the pandemic. Yeah, they do, because they have to, like, the airports are about to be shut down. They basically have to bail and leave states before they return. And then they film over the next year or two dozens and dozens of these videos, and they seem to have had a pretty successful tour all in. But it's a great series, and when they eventually posted the video related to us, it was about at least a year later, maybe 18 months, I'd have to check the date. But it was quite late in the series, but there were numerous videos afterwards. But I would recommend anybody to go and view the rest of the videos in this series. You'll see him get caught in quite a few places. Although they don't get caught in the way that we do, they get backed off a lot. On the night, we would have backed them off. If I had taken an interest in the game, I would have backed them off. But as I say, the boss was... he'd made this chap, the big player, he was a special case for him, and my speciality is roulette. But they were fairly obvious to me. As soon as I seen there were new faces at the casino, I realised what the game was. But the boss had been fussing over this guy, and as they said earlier, he was talking to him and what have you. But I was more than happy for if the boss knows him, says he knows him, and he wants to take the responsibility of it, then crack on. But I was quite pleased at the end of it when we discovered the truth of the matter. But the boss said, I knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. He didn't play like that the last time. Apparently on the first time he'd come in, he'd sat at the table, played normally for several hours. You wouldn't have suspected him of being in a team because he was on his own. But that was obviously his reconnaissance trip. Yeah, he had our pants down good, in fairness. Although we did catch them at the end. So one thing I didn't like with these guys, though, they were a little bit confrontational, I would say. Well, the big player especially. So Stephen, first of all, was agitated and wanted to know why he was banned, blah, blah, blah. I'd spoken to him for 10, 15 minutes outside, and then the big player turned up then, who immediately tried to deny being in the team, even though Stephen was still sitting next to me and had already told me that he was filming a documentary about card counting. So at that point, I couldn't really take him seriously. But then he started with the spiel of, casinos are evil. You don't want to play with people who know how to win. Blah, blah, blah. You just want to take people's money and all this kind of stuff. And it got me a bit annoyed, to be honest, because our casino, like the boss has had it for nearly over 50 years, pushing 60 years. He's never advertised. He doesn't believe in getting players drunk. Doesn't believe in taking advantage of people that way. As I say, 90% of our customers are regular customers who've been with us for years. There's no need to be greedy and to try and wipe somebody out immediately. It's not good for business. If somebody wins, they win. The boss has never begrudged somebody a win. If anything, it's good for the casino. The atmosphere is always better when people are winning there. Other players are excited. They talk about it. Did you see what happened last night? Has that player come back again? All this kind of, it's a good buzz for the casino. There's no need for us to be nasty to the players or to begrudge anybody a win. But obviously, when you've got a professional team in, we're not going to just let them play forever. In the casino, that would be ridiculous. As I explained to them, nobody forces anybody to go to the casino. We've never advertised. Everybody knows that there's an edge for the casino, and we don't have to take a bet if we don't want to take a bet. And who in their right mind would take a bet where the edge is switched in favour of the players? It's just a nonsense to accuse anybody of. If you go into the casino, you know that there's going to be a tax on your play from the government and from the house. That's just the reality of casino games. So I didn't really like it when he was trying to accuse us of being predatory and stuff. It got my back up a bit, and I wasn't going to listen to that. You can accuse my boss of a lot of things, but taking it like what they were trying to say, no, I'm not having that. But Stephen himself, very pleasant guy. I spoke to him, as I say, 10, 15 minutes outside the casino the following day. But the big player, he bit of a high opinion of himself, I would say. We'll leave it at that.